Morning.
Morning.
Morning. It's morning for you.
Yeah, still. Morning, Rainy. Hi, Alex.
Morning.
Hi, Teresa.
Good morning.
What are you sitting in front of today, Lauren?
This is one of the speculative maps of a friend of mine in London who's an artist named Kathy Pendergast, and she takes an atlas and she processes her commitment to not travel because she doesn't want to burn airplane fuel by going to pages in the atlas and spending months covering all the places that the atlas shows with black ink.
Wow.
And just leaving dots with all the cities in the place she'd like to visit.
What a wonderful.
I just think it's such a wonderful artwork, and it's an entire atlas.
Wow.
And it's just a kind of practice of immersing herself in speculative travel, you know?
It's also sort of heartbreaking.
I know there is a mournfulness about it. And I'm really interested in how mapping of place and personal mapping kind of coalesce. Like I'm just finishing an exhibition with Desert X, and one of the artists there, Himali Singh Swan, she was talking to me about how like her projects are both maps and like personal like geographies. So the piece she did in the desert has a lot to do with like voice and projection out into a void.
Which piece is yours? I was there, but I'm not.
It's the kind of pole, like that totem that's out in the middle of the.
Oh, I love that piece. Right.
With the megaphones going in different directions. And
I was there on a really like windy, rainy day, and it was so moody. And
I was there at a similar kind of day when it was like really physically challenging to be there. Like one of the friends that I was with actually ducked by the car because she couldn't handle the wind. And so that actually really changed it again, because just like that aspect of being in a analog situation, like being your body in space, and how delicate you can feel when challenging things come up, like the power of the wind or the power of cold. It's like sometimes you can't get those things from a map, but they're triggers emotionally for like personal trauma, but also like epigenetic trauma, like this whole period in the life of man where we were hunter-gatherers and we had so much less security.
we needed shelter.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was the first piece I saw of that show.
I love how simple that map is as a statement on carbon neutrality. I had a job working on a carbon footprint generator. And I mean, just draw a map and plant a tree. That's making carbon, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's not, it doesn't have to be a something that you generate.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also, you know, there's something about an alchemical transformation that Kathy's accomplished with this map that's behind my head. Because of the kind of physical practice of like layering ink over a page and its exacting kind of nature, like she got like carpal tunnel syndrome on her wrists doing this project. And like, just for those of us who come to art practice through the lens of movement practices, like that, again, the idea that movement practice can be in a hand or in a wrist, but also how that connects to, again, the kind of nomadic condition of all of us, you know, that's something we all share in common, like death, you know? we all share an epigenetic past where our DNA wandered for most of geological time. Like, think that, you know, I think it's like 200,000 years or 300,000 years that human beings have been on the planet, and the last 500 have been since agriculture took over and we could be settled. So if you think about it, and if you think about what that means and how we carry it into our practices, it's an interesting thing. I've been really surprised that I continue to live in a desert like my ancestors did. Like, it's so obvious as a Jewish person that my epigenetic roots come from deserts, but I somehow never think about that in the like trajectory of my creative practice until I stop and think about, you know, time in relationship to practice. And welcome, everybody. Thank you, Rainey, I was talking, for those of you who came in late, about the map that's behind my head. It's a work of art from a friend of mine in London named Kathy Pendergast, who works with speculative maps, and this is called Black Atlas. And it's a piece of work she's done over many years where she she takes a reductionist view of travel, and she goes places she wants to go but isn't going to go, and spends eons of time combing over the atlas. And as she goes, she colors everything black with a pen until she just leaves the cities that she's visited in her mind's eye. And I just think it's an exquisite work. And since we've been talking about maps and generating speculative ecologies, I wanted to kind of, you know, bring up the idea of how she uplifts the incommunicable, whatever that word is, the things you can't see in a satellite view, you know, the projection you can't see in a satellite view of things, what lies beneath the surface of things, how time.
I think I found another one for maps. I'm going to put it in chat.
Perfect. Is that of hers?
It's Kathy with a K and Pendergast.
Yeah, you got it. Thank you.
I found her gallery page, and this is a beautiful map between love and paradise.
Yeah. So I wanted to start our class today by just saying hello. And yet last week was really disorganizing and challenging emotionally and intellectually, I think, for me, and I'm sure it was for you. And I feel that my best service to you this week is to do what I do best, and to have us try and think about what happened through the lens of learning, at least in art, what reparation work looks like, and to also talk about, within a class situation right now, how do we create a safe space for communication, and how do we collectively decide to move off agendas and hold space for whatever comes up, you know. Like we're, you know, engaged in a live art practice. So I wanted to just throw the door open like I do like to do for the homework and talk about the YouTube video I sent all of you from the amazing Olufemi Taiwo's work on reparation, and also the article that I posted that was written by Steffi Nelson about my work on the art of reparation. And, you know, ask you to synthesize those things you've read and looked at, and or anything else you might like to bring up in relationship to the creation of a safe space on a Zoom class. What kinds of rules of engagement should exist to make sure that everybody feels safe when they enter a virtual room, about boundaries and edges and how that connects to reparation work? You know, how do we define the boundaries of this kind of engagement? So either way to go is open. They're both kind of homework, the homework of processing what happened in class through the lens of a week of time, through the lens of the work of the readings that and YouTubes that I've given you to think about, and also perhaps thinking of, you know, how to structure these kinds of things so that the rules of engagement are more clear, and that we all feel safer. You know, for me, Olufemi Taiwo, I wrote this last night to sort of try and, well, first of all, how many people heard his YouTube lecture? Okay, great. So the reason that I think it's so great is that his idea of environmental reparation that he brings into other forms of reparation is that they can be seen as an extension of the broader argument of reparation as a means of addressing systemic injustice and promoting a more equitable society. I think that's a really original offering to connect environmental justice with the reparations that are warranted as a result of people being ripped off a continent to serve as slaves in other continent, and generations pass. And that doesn't mean that real economic reparation doesn't get made. So it's about this taking accountability for the exploitation over time of earlier generations, owning it as part of the cultural milieu and taking real action. So, you know, Taiwo's intersectionality highlights both the historic and environmental injustice. Just as historic injustices have disproportionately impacted marginalized communities along lines of race, gender, and sexuality, so too have environmental harms. You see that in this continent, especially with the Native American people. And just this week, you saw what happened in the Amazon with tribal leaders being once again assassinated because of the desire to strip the Amazon. This is a cultural phenomena of colonial settler mentality that is not being healed, and it cannot be healed until we culturally account for what's been done. He argues that any policy measures aimed at readdressing these harms must take into account the complex ways in which various forms of oppression intersect and compound each other. In other words, just like the systemic thinking that we're talking about with mycorrhizal networks and AI, reparations are complex too. You cannot marginalize them into niche categories. You can't separate from the environment to the reparations that need to be done in any other area. And this is one of the reasons why I've again chosen to take on this idea of post-human infrastructure, is because I think it offers a potential way through. the long-term responsibility of reparation work. So those are my thoughts, and I just wanted to open it up to y'all to reflect.
Once I was reading the Pope Francis's encyclical Laudato Si, which talks about caring for Mother Earth, and it talks about a similar concept where social degradation and environmental degradation are an entangled sort of phenomena. And I just want to agree with everything you said, that we can't solve ecological crisis or environmental crisis without addressing the entanglement of where social degradation is happening and environmental degradation is happening. It's a completely simultaneous effect.
I really appreciated Taiwo's explanation of constructive reparation and the things that needed to happen for that to take place. Especially that the people that benefited from the injustice show up more in a way. And my curiosity with that, especially after my experience last week, brought me back to what has been a very long practice for me. And I feel, as I've been reading about Constance work as well, about the body. And that for me, the only way I found that I can show up in spaces is if I'm connected to my nervous system and my body. And what I noticed is more growth for myself from last week is that I froze. I experienced shame and worry that people were really upset, and that triggered an experience for me to not be able to show up in a way that others were able to, and be able to voice and say their truth in the moment. So that helps me to recognize the work is still within for me and my body to continue to fight for justice and work towards justice, first inside, and then from there move and infuse that energy into the projects that I choose to do and the groups I choose to work with moving forward, to be constructive.
Thank you, Mary. That is great, great feedback. And, you know, how great to be able to feel that you went into freeze, you know, and how I think that there's something there that happens on a cultural level too. Like I sometimes feel that the art world, as filtered through the art market, is in trauma freeze. And therefore disconnected from some kind of truthful engagement. So I think that things can be, we can experience, when we can get connected to what we go through in a traumatic situation, I think we can extend it almost on like layers of like fractals. Like we can see how the trauma of cultural trauma operates on that same kind of disconnect. And I think that it's interesting that people who are afraid of AI might connect trauma and AI and loss and grieving of control to AI, because most of the arguments I hear about AI or post-human technology are really issues of losing control, which is, of course, an illusion to begin with, but the being called on that by being told that there may be something that knocks you out of your position of centrality is what's being defended here. And again, if we look back at geological time, for the 4.5 million years that blue whales were the largest animals that swam in the sea, up to 200,000 years when human beings entered. Up till 500 years ago, when we had the plow, humans represented less than 10% of the beings on the planet. And in 500 years, connected to the millions of years where we had giant organisms like blue whales swimming in the sea, we have somehow become more than 90% with our livestock of what is alive on the planet and reduced everything else to under 10. So it's reasonable to assume we would think that we were king of the forest and that AI and post-human technologies are somehow challenging that. So I would think that post-humanism speaks for all of the other beings that have been eradicated, potentially. It's a potential to recalibrate the balance. And I think that we can understand that when we go into freeze ourselves, when we get out in the world and find that our mechanisms for shutdown happen, and how vulnerable we can be then to not being present for art practice or whatever it is that calls you to be an artist. That check-in mechanism might get shut down for a little while until you recalibrate. So that's what I heard in your share, Marianne. Rose, I hope that sounds okay.
I love the parallels, and it again speaks to how do we in our practice encourage that showing up, especially as someone with a skin color that has benefited in this country culturally, that I'm recognizing that the freeze response is not something that can be afforded in this day and age, when there's things to show up for. So yeah, I appreciate your reflection on the fear as well of losing control and the illusion of that.
I think the freeze response is spot on. And for me, what came up so strongly is sort of wanting to be able to hold that space and do or say the right thing, and being sort of terrified to act at all because of that fear of, I don't know, doing it wrong almost, or adding to the trauma that was already unfolding. I'm so grateful for the piece we both read and listened to, the YouTube piece. Number one, that work is happening. And for me, what really struck me was both the intersection of social and environmental justice, but also as artists, the notion of affordance, and thinking that perhaps our role is to design those affordances as artists that essentially shift thinking and behavior. It's certainly a concept I've thought a lot of as a designer, but never as an artist in this social justice design path. So what are the ways that we can create practices or objects or performance that don't suggest the change, but offer it? It's a question I don't have an answer to yet.
Yeah, well, I think you just came up with a great what if. Just to go back to it, do you want to try and phrase what you just said as a what if?
Sure. What if we could create or design art practices that offered alternative, healthy ways to be?
I love that.
I've been in a band called Fuck You Pay Us for about 6 years now. We think about reparations often, and one thing that I often see in our white fans who appreciate us but don't see the real thing that we're asking them to reckon with, and that's actually to give up power. I feel like a lot of white people actually have an inability, or people in power and just people in power don't want to give up that power. That's like basic hegemony. But with things like reparations, with these things that actually have to happen, like it's like there's no way that our system can keep going where just the rich keeps getting richer, the earth just keeps getting destroyed. Like reparations actually like have to happen. But the idea that someone actually has to give up power is what fears them, I think. I saw that a lot with Elias, where it's like, bro, you're wrong. But to give up that idea of like, no, we love dancing Africans. It's okay. That's how they get free. It's like, no, you're fucking wrong. And it's disgusting. And it's like, we shouldn't have to fight you to like, it's just fucking disgusting. But yeah, I just feel like right now I'm just thinking a lot about W.E.B. Du Bois talking about the souls of white folks, where it's like under white supremacy, it's like, oh, so sad you're not white, so sad you can't have access to this peace, so sad you can't have access to this joy, or this sense of like camaraderie or peace that capitalism money gives people in America in particular. It's like under reparations, will it just be, oh, well, have a taste of our whiteness, have a taste of what it feels like to be safe, instead of like this like repair, cultural repair, harm repair, like. And it's interesting because like whenever I have whenever I am like in a space where I'm one of the few Black people and we're talking about things like this, and then like I hear white people talk about freezing and stuff, I'm like, y'all are allowed to, because you have a whole system that lets you just not respond to racism. You're allowed, like, it's like it's fine, like, like it's like, yes, it's a response, yes, it's a natural response, but like it's a natural response that was taught to you by a white supremacist like structure. Like it's not like, oh, it's just about no, it's like you were taught to just not care, like, and it's like it's an actual like unlearning to know how to like respond and care. Like I'm a Black person who just saw a Black man being killed lynched on a train yesterday, and I have to come, like, it's just like, I don't think that they actually, like, I don't think that people in power actually see the real pain that people are going through, because it would like actually have to take of decentering of themselves. So that's what I think. I honestly am still trying to figure out how to be in spaces like this and have my opinions and views, but yeah.
Thank you, Jasmine. If you have any, again, if anybody has any tips, like for example, there's practical things that I can enact, like I think it's a good idea if you speak in a class like this that you have your camera on, and if you don't speak, right? And also, like, I'm thinking about like just procedures, right? Also, don't think that the chat bar should be used for outside, images. Like it should be kept to what's being talked and augmented in class, because in terms of control, I do feel that when you come to a class that I'm being privileged to lead, I do need to have some agreements that we make about how to communicate on the platform in a way that makes me feel safe. And it's already an abstraction to not be able to see people in real life. But if I can't also see them on Zoom, there's so much I can't tell, but that can relate to privilege again, because not everybody in the world has a camera on their computer. So, it's there's this interesting kind of problem, the assumptions that we make about the access to cameras and all the rest of it. So, if you have things that you come up with, Jasmine or anybody else, about things that could be put out there in the procedures of a class like this, that I could incorporate if I choose to teach in this format again, I would be really interested in. Also, how if they could be included as a what if statement, just just like, what if we could create or design art practices that could design healthier ways to be in the world, you know? Like, is there a, like, what if, you know, that could be incorporated here?
I just want to reflect and say thank you, Jasmine, for that expression and the real reiteration of a reality that I experienced firsthand and will carry with me and emblazed in my mind of that. There's a part of my experience that has trained me to not fight or respond to violence, especially towards Black people or people that have had that experience. So thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's really insidious. Like, I'm kind of at this place where I'm just like, should I even be in community with white people? Or are they just like so committed to just not caring? Like, I just literally, I'm still figuring it out. Like, part of why I'm in this class, I'm like, should I even trust white people? Like, are they just so committed to not caring? Like, is that really just, but this is showing me that's not really the case. It's not a commitment to not caring. It's just like an actual like lack of awareness. Sometimes there is sometimes just actual white supremacy or like actually like narcissist, not even not like with like, but anyway, what I'm trying to say is that like, yeah, this gives me a little bit more hope as well. Like, cause I'm just like, I didn't have to experience that on a Thursday afternoon. I could go in my studio and do something fun. I didn't have to experience a man defending his right to dehumanize me, which is something I already experience every single day. Like, it's like, what, like, come on, like but yeah, so I appreciate this and I appreciate you too.
An idea that I've been reflecting on a lot is, I guess since Thursday, or I guess really a reminder, is that, you know, unfortunately, though the world is a shitty place and it's going to be that way until, you know, some really real work is put in. And just like Jasmine was saying about, you know, people have to essentially give up power. But the idea that like, that my safety can be guaranteed actually isn't true for me. Like, that's not a truth for me. Like, you can say this is a safe space, and I'm not talking about this space in particular, but like anywhere I am, like it can be communicated that I'm in a safe space, but because of my own intersectionality of who I am, that's not going to be true. And so I've talked to my dad for a pretty long bit about it, but something very grounding that he was communicating that I think is helpful is, you know, there is a lot of power in the voice. And, you know, I don't know what Elias looked like, and I really don't care to know what he looks like. But like, I think knowing that him, like hearing from an Arab voice in particular, was what really set me off, just because of my respective history. But like, I think in a way, I was trying to use my voice as another African to, I don't know, I found myself like trying to reason with him, but I don't owe anybody a reasoning when it comes to my own safety. So I guess just really all that to say, something that I'm wanting to take away, or I feel like I need to take away, is that like, if I can't have safety in myself, then that takes away every bit of safety that I'll ever be able to have. And, you know, I do thank everyone for contributing to, you know, this being a good place for me to be in. But I guess I would just want you to know I'm not looking to anybody to help me feel safe. And I like the ways that you are trying. You know, I definitely do see the effort. But yeah, again, this is just a shitty world, and I feel like asking for a safe space is just an unrealistic thing for me. But that doesn't mean it can't be possible. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just to piggyback off that safe space, like there's that concept of brave space, of course, too, where it's like brave space is about like having the space where your heart is heard where your heart is heard, and you can feel like if harm happens, I have the space to take up to like still feel like a part of a community, still feel a part of something, still feel like a part, like conjoined to something. Like, do you think that's possible here? I'm curious.
I'm wondering if that could be posed as a what if. What if there could be a safe space? When I say that, I feel that in my like emotional core. And I think that's an interesting thing to think about as artists. Like, what are the what ifs for this class with the creation of speculative ecologies that are healing for you to consider, especially in a world that may not deliver them. I know for myself, in taking apart a vacant lot on top of what used to be a floodplain and making it, making the condition for it to rebound makes that place feel like a safe place. But it's not safe, and it breaks my heart. I don't know if anybody in the world will ever see what I've done there and protect it. How do I know that after me, all of that won't just be bulldozed and turned back into a parking lot? And so that's a heartbreaking thing to realize, that working outside of the box or working outside of the cultural frame means I have no protection for anything that I'm able to realize in the world. And yet somehow I still feel motivated to do it. But do I feel safe about it? Absolutely not. And I can't tell you how many times I've watched people walk in and not even see what I've done. They don't even see it. It's not even in their lexicon to see that as artwork. Do you know how many times I've heard that about my practice? I'm so glad you don't need to worry about showing your work in a gallery or I mean, the level of insult, the level of like neglect, that is absolutely not how I feel. And the marginalization of a metabolic practice into a niche that kind of isn't understood is profound. So I understand from lived experience what it's like to dare to think about, well, what if there were a safe spot to bring out debris from underneath the concrete river to take apart a tarmac and let it breathe and regenerate, but I can't protect it. In recognizing that this is a self-portrait and that therefore I also can't protect myself. And why have I done this again? I don't know if that helps, but I definitely feel that if my experience can resonate with what you're saying, Julu or Jasmine, that owning the what ifs and enacting them has been a process of both repair work I've done and also traumatic, because I'm not in a position to protect what I've done. And should I have done it at all, that comes up for me. What is the ethic of that? Potential destruction. And then I realized it's only destruction in the form I've made it. All the benefits to all the living systems are it can't be reduced to the form it's in, right? That soil will go somewhere else. Those pollinators are now moving through the world. The birds have had a place to be. The coyotes have had a place to repair. Students have had a place to come in and see that another city is possible. So all that can be taken is form, and that is an experience of living and dying. We are in a constant continuum with living and dying. So to like realize that there's nothing that we can make that can be protected. It can be collected, it cannot be protected.
I have something to share that I haven't shared with many people, but for me last week when I was participating in the conversation and connected to the idea of freeze, that was also my natural response, not coming from a place of privilege necessarily, but because of things that happened that I witnessed in the past, that whenever I even sense that energy of conflict or I just freeze, that's just something I do. And it takes me days to awaken from that. And yeah, I don't have any answer for that, but I just wanted to share that. That's also another perspective of why people in general freeze, regardless of where they're coming from, because we all carry our own individual traumas from that emerge in very different situations and cultural contexts. I'm from Romania, and I came in the US when I was 20 or 19 years old, which is 10 years ago. I also wanted to share that, connected to this memory, it's seeing how, again, the video of Lauren removing the tarmac and asphalt, it was just so healing, and that is also equally overwhelming to think of. I was just walking yesterday with a friend who is doing his dissertation on all the water bodies in Providence that have been paved on. And I took a walk with him in Providence, and he was pointing to me towards all these towards all what it used to be from what he studies in the maps. And yeah, I just felt so overwhelmed by the amount of cement, but something that kept reoccurring was that image from Lauren's video, from Lauren's presentation. So I just wanted to share my experience.
Thank you, Alex. I'm so glad that you have that kind of connection to empathy for the floodplain and what was buried under there. Because that gives me hope, that's that kind of thing of invisibility that I'm talking about. Like when I go into a construction condition and the construction workers roll their eyes when I say that we're going to save every bit of that debris. What they call debris is gold to me, and we're going to save every bit of it. And they kind of like, oh, here comes a crazy lady again. It's funny on one level, but it's also really injurious. And it's like that thing that Ajulu or Jasmine was saying, like, sometimes I don't think white people can really feel what it's like to live in a world that you're constantly dealing with being traumatized by not just sometimes direct, like racism, but the neglect to even understand that you don't get it, that you've been in a way trained not to get it. And thank you so much, Constance, for posting on the chat bar the work of somebody who's dealing with this kind of thing.
Yeah, and I guess just it takes a lot of bravery to speak up as people who have been marginalized. And I just want to like yeah, I just want to say thank you, Ajulu, for being here. Like, I don't think I would have actually ever said anything if there wasn't at least one more person I can just feel like could just see me. But I know that, like, I just want to say as well, like, I think I just like appreciate talking through this kind of stuff. Like it's about being swept under the rug that really, I think, makes it the worst, you know, like when it's just like, okay, time for next class, like, let's just go back to things. Like, no, this is a part of us now. Like, we have to like work through it in this way. But when I think about the soil too, and like the soil of the soul, and I think about all these ways that we've been like cemented over by ourselves, by the society and all these things, I just think that some people really fight for their cement. Like they fight for that foundation. They don't know anything else. Like this, that's all they know. And what makes a space brave is that it's not just one person, not the person who was hurt, who's doing all the excavating. It's not just the person who was hurt, who's doing all the hammering. It's everybody in that room. And that's not exactly what happened last week. Kinda, but it was mostly two people who were the most hurt doing a lot of the work of explaining to this man. And it's like, that's not like, that's what makes a space brave. It's everyone speaking up. But like, I know now that after this conversation, it won't be the same.
Yeah, I wanted to share something. Like last week, left a bit earlier because I wanted to plant the palms, but it was already a bit late. And also, I didn't felt the vibe to do that after the class, and was really, it took a lot of time like to reflect on our experience, and sat just beside the plants and discussed like about what happened, and for a lot of time with my life partner. He's a Black person, and situations like that happened last week happen like very oftenly with him. And as a white Brazilian, he being a Black person, we always like discuss a lot about these situations, how I respond to the situations when I'm beside him. And like many of our discussions gave me space like to understand some of the things that Jasmine are saying, like for example, that if she didn't took the action to speak up, maybe the situation would just go, and like why it had to be her, the person who first.
Well, I have a feeling he'll be back.
Can I just say, I also was going to express something similar. I've been reflecting this whole last week about what happened. And I think the thing that was just really sitting so badly with me was that Jasmine had the burden of being the person to say something. And I was just thinking about how I think a lot of us were confused, and that's also a privilege of just sitting there and being like, I'm not sure what's happening here. And I think giving the person the benefit of the doubt and sort of at some point, I just really felt like we let that go on so long. And for me, it was just a lot of like, we're giving this person a platform to continue hurting people here. And that was really upsetting me last week, that I felt like we should have reduced the harm by not giving someone a platform to just double down. And I just felt like we gave too much of a benefit of the doubt, like explain yourself, what do you mean here? That was really not sitting right with me. And Lauren, about what you were saying about moving forward, I don't know what the right protocol is here. And I really appreciate what Jules said. Is I'm really thinking about this, about how you can't ever guarantee a safe space. But yeah, it's just, I'm just really sorry that Jasmine had to be the one to say something first. That's really awful, and I'm sorry. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Thank you. Jamie Grace knows, but in February, I went through something that deeply traumatized me. So I'm still coming from a place of like, still figuring out like my own words or how to like voice what I feel after what happened. And so like, I appreciate you bringing up that element, because I was deeply scared. I was like, wait, am I crazy? Am I wild to think that this is offensive? Like, what the hell is going on here? Like, what am I in the wrong, like, you know? So yeah, just want to say that, like, thanks for saying that. Yeah.
My connection with them. So I was saying that I discussed it a lot of time about it, and like it made me think like a bit more about this freezing reaction white people have, and that sometimes they wait for people that are racialized to speak something in first place, and that is already a bit violent, or they expect that racialized people tell her how to act and educate her then how to act, and that is already like a weight that they put on like racialized people to carry the like that weight of educating white people how to act. So these things like I've been discussing in my personal relationship with my life partner, and last week was a moment to trigger like more, to make me think more another strategies to like not freezing in these moments, not waiting for racialized people to speak. And I don't know if any of you are familiar, but one way that helped me to like think strategies was coming to the concept of microaggressions, and go read a little bit about microaggressions. There can be like racial microaggressions, like transphobic microaggressions. There are these kind of situations that the micro doesn't mean they are like less harmful, they are small. Micro means just that they happen in interpersonal relations, and sometimes the person who is acting is not exactly aware of how aggressive they are in the way they are speaking. And there are lots of articles, many from the field of psychology, discussing like this concept, the kind of reactions people have in the moments where a microaggression have, how they freeze, and if they freeze, and what strategies they can build for not freezing and responding as a person that is racialized or as a white ally, or as a bystander, if you're just someone who's like in the moment. And so I'll share with you the link of one of the articles I read, maybe it can be useful. And like, I think the concept can be like an interesting way for I think for everyone, if you are in a many times, we who are artists also work in the field of education. So like we can be in the position that Lauren is at any time, and we all like need to learn how to manage the situations in ways that like we really respond and not amplify the traumatic situation for those who are being the target. And also like to like since we are in a pedagogic environment, like to try to find educational solutions to these situations. So yeah, I think we have to like engage in learning to cope in the situations and yeah. So that's it. Made me think a lot of things and made me like download a lot of articles and discuss a lot with personals that are around me, with people that are around me that like can have a more embodied empathy with Jasmine and Ajulu, because they are dealing with these situations like daily. Like in microaggressions, they happen like all the time, and sometimes they are micro, but they happen so often that they build like something big, like something that happens so repetitive that can like explode in like in small situations or not. Yeah, that's
I have a what if, based on my experience. I've participated in 2 tribal councils, and I've also gone to Quaker meeting. And there's prerequisites to be in those processes. And as we were talking about, does everyone have a camera? Yes, I live near the Silicon Valley, and I'm a white woman, and I have several devices, but Google gave away so many Chromebooks. If someone can get online and register for this class, I'm pretty sure Google will give them a Chromebook with a camera. And in tribal council, you don't go until puberty. And that's not, but the flip side that I experience every day is that my daughter did not do well in Quaker school. She's neurodivergent. And she was able to do the quiet reflection part, but expressed herself in ways that made these people who aren't Quaker, who really just kind of like the brand identity of Quakers and made a fancy school about it. They didn't like how she expressed herself. She's a public school kid. She's an inner city kid. But last week's meeting, I had somatic response and I was exhausted. And that's how I feel after going, when I have gone to council. It goes longer than you expect it to go. It goes into the night. And I really appreciate that everyone felt comfortable expressing themselves. Council can include profanity or crying or whatever comes up, but there is a prerequisite. And then I wonder kind of, Lauren is always having us think in the future. I really wonder with this generation of kids who are growing up with restorative justice in the schools. I'm like, they're kids, so they find tricky ways to get through it. And my daughter with her neurodivergence and trouble expressing herself, like someone wants to kind of they're trying to force reparations. And I'm like, she's not ready. She's not ready. And I don't know we only have a few weeks of school left. I don't know that that's going to happen this year. And hopefully, next year she'll feel ready. But I also wonder if we're raising like a generation of just like fierce negotiators. Yeah, I'm struggling to find something positive to say about kids doing restorative justice, because I do feel there should be a prerequisite, either reflection or age or the tools that you need to to be present and be in that process for as long as it takes. And also what came up when we're talking about the fear reflex, fawning. That's where I go. I fawn, and maybe that's how I showed up last week. I have just a tendency when things are uncomfortable to like do a little dance, like get in between my parents when they would fight. And maybe that's because I know they're Quaker, so no one's going to hit me. Like I felt safe enough getting in the middle of people, not to like, I was really trying to find a better example. I'm not trying to like trauma bond with everyone, but I see the fawn reflex in my daughter. I'm trying to teach her about body checking when kids, use their weight, and she smiles and laughs when kids bump into her. It's the fawn reflex. And it's not, we don't talk about it as much as fight, flight, and fear, but it is where I go and where my daughter goes. And I don't know that much about it. But Lauren, I do think you did a wonderful job last week. It felt like council. And council doesn't feel good. I mean, it might. I have not been to enough to know if sometimes council, I've not been to a happy council meeting personally, but I've only been to a couple.
So what was your what if, Teresa?
What if there was a prerequisite?
Okay, a prerequisite to what?
I feel, and Mary Rose and I had a side conversation. I feel when I signed up for this class, it was very clear that you should be present and have your camera on. And I feel if someone can complete an application, they can probably, I'm imagining, ask Google for $100 Chromebook that they, we're giving out to public school students here. Again, I'm speaking as a white woman near the Silicon Valley, right by Google's campus. I understand that that's not the same for everyone, but if you're able to access this platform, you can probably have someone in the organization help you write that email, or at least reach out to someone who would be able to connect you with. I mean, we were able to give out hotspots, and again, this is San Francisco, where we're just flush with tech money. I realize that my experience with tech in my entire education has been atypical for growing up adjacent to the Silicon Valley. But for a serious conversation or for a class, and I feel like the prerequisite was clear that if you are going to be in the class, your camera is going to be on. And the resources are, resources, there's so many old Chromebooks at Goodwill right now from when we had school closures and virtual schools, and they were literally just handing them out and the schools didn't even ask for them back.
Thank you, Teresa.
Yeah, if I could share my perspective, I'd be really grateful. I grew up super privileged, like in the most privileged way possible in Los Angeles. And then always, when my mother worked in community college, so I had a certain insight into, the more like marginalized members of the community, and honestly how warm they were and how kind they were, but then also how treated differently, and or just didn't have access to the same opportunities. But I encountered them in my mom's classroom, so I always wanted to kind of engage the project of reparation in graduate school afterwards, but it's always felt a bit, I guess, like awkward coming from like a more privileged position. And the position I find myself now, is there's a whole story I could kind of tell in terms of like trying to make educational programs for inner city students to have access, like empowering them with certain softwares or workflows or like methods of thinking, even, or access to educated resources. But going on ground to actually volunteer at a center where the community is coming together and making reparations on their own right. You know, there's internal reparations happening within those communities, and they're establishing it for themselves amongst each other. And for an outsider to want to make reparations there also, it's kind of like not, it's just a whole other dynamic, I think. But the position I find myself now is I'm making art with a member of one of the communities. We're making a hip hop album, and I find myself in this method of reparation as like speaking about things that we could really bond with, even though I come from a privileged background and my friends coming from this marginalized community, we're really bonding over really deep spiritual concepts, intellectual concepts, realities about economy and politicalization of what creates these marginalized conditions. And it's been, I think, healing for both of us to find things that we could bond over that are about maybe like the essence of what it means to be human, or some deep spiritual aspects of how to be creative and summon our greatest self to express goodness, spread love, and manifest, you know, the most sort of pure intentions that we can in the artwork that we're creating. So yeah, I just thought I'd share that kind of arc of my journey. I think is very relevant, because I think it's important we're co-creative and support each other through the trauma. And I think art and creativity is so therapeutic for trauma, and to be co-creative is what definitely like the avenue, I think, of reparation.
Thank you, Jack. You know, I also have really had a lot of privilege in my life, including access to, you know, Ivy League education, and living in Europe for 10 years and getting a chance to travel and see art. And one of the ways that I have learned how privileged that is was to also be in Jack's mother's classroom and help her pedagogically with a course that she wanted to do, and learn what the role of creativity had for people that were coming from a radically different background from me, in building a bridge to a certain kind of self-reflection, which was also letting go of the kind of shame for maybe choices that had further marginalized them. Like, there are a lot of people that were coming from you know, troubles with the law, and then going through the lens of like learning how to build things, and what the meaning of that impact is, being able to manifest something they were proud of. And that was something that I'd never really thought about in the educational framework that I had been privileged to be in, which is that almost like education was just like for the betterment of your mind, not like a kind of like rewriting of the possibility of self-identity outside of choices that were unfathomable to me in that at that time in my life. So teaching in a school like this that NATO and Amber are putting together, that aims to be a kind of aperture throughout the whole world, is a novel situation. And part of the kind of question that I framed for this week's guiding question, like, what do you want to say? Who do you want to say it to? How do you want to say it? Is something that I think the whole school framework is responding to. Like, what does the alternative art school want to say? How do they want to say it, and to who? And I think that brings up a lot of interesting kind of questions for them, you know, when I brought the problem of how do I, as a teacher, represent what we do now to the school, they also had to guide me through what they would like me to do. With, for example, I was asked not to tell Elias that he couldn't come back to class. That was the school's position on that. So, you know, when you're working in a system, these systems, you know, have to ask, well, what if he didn't mean this to be the way it was taken? And what if language is an issue for him? And what if he doesn't understand? And, you know, what is the school's response, you know, to that? So, you know, the what ifs also are an interesting thing, you know, like what if I don't know. So I made a choice to teach this class so that each class I worked on what we do next based on the class before, which is not what happens when you go to a normal school. So what if the teacher is allowed to make the work in progress of forming a new pedagogical approach to an international school, one of co-creation? What if? I mean, that's a radical position to take. It's a lot more work because I'm not just defaulting to some previous syllabi. I'm really listening to what is going on a group level and trying to shape the class in a response to that. There aren't many schools that would say, hey, we think that's a really good idea for how to run a class. So that's another kind of what if. What if being intra-acting, I like that, Rainey, intra-acting, is a way forward? What if letting go of the idea of being an expert at anything is part of that letting go of control? What if teachers started by saying, thank you for your time, let's try and co-create this experience because I don't know how to teach for this precarious moment we're all living through, anything that makes sense. I don't know if anything makes sense. I can only tell you what my journey is, and try and listen to yours and see if there's enough common ground that we can co-create something that will lead you after we end this class forward, knowing that there is an audience perhaps. Like, what do you want to say and who do you want to say it to? And then how do you want to say it? And is having an audience important to your practice? Or are you happy with the whole Zen idea of do something good in the world today and don't get found out about it? So I thought we should maybe move to a little bit of practice today. I don't know if anybody tried the second part of the homework that I gave you to look into Discord and look into Mind Journey and begin to take the exercises we've had with the what ifs and start to create imagery that could begin to be portals into creating a liminal diagram of a speculative ecology. But I wanted to at least kind of move the ship, if we're comfortable into this other kind of world, by starting with Alex, who has did the exercise and thought that she would share it, and then we'll take a break and then come back and kind of get into the second part of the class, which may be to workshop some of these ideas. Does that sound comfortable for people? Okay. All right. So Alex, do you want to sort of refresh just to refresh the homework assignment? I posed the idea that we explore a post-human interface like an AI to take our exercises we've done so far a step further, and also just get some experience at image generating with an AI. And I just suggested using Midjourney because it's on Discord, and Discord is certainly moving towards a Web3 platform, which I also think is the best solution to decolonization of virtual space. Anyway, to take the time to explore Midjourney, to give a prompt that is a what if, and connect it to the map you made or anything else as a way to start to build a speculative ecology. So that was the assignment. That's the kind of practice I'd like to kind of move into at the moment for the rest of our class. And before the break, Alex has kindly offered to share what she has done.
Thank you, Lauren. I'll just share my screen now. I am on my partner's laptop, so sorry for the messy background. Basically what I've done, this is also a monthly subscription. So if you watch the tutorial, you see now that it might look slightly different from the Discord Midjourney, where it has different channels. But because this is a paid subscription, it allows me not to wait in line for certain for the images to be generated. So what I did, I basically started to copy paste my what ifs into the Discord, and to do so I just typed in dash imagine, and then I copy pasted my sentence. But just by me copy pasting my what ifs, I wasn't really happy with the images I was getting at all. And so then I got the idea of using the maps we generated during week 3 as my starting points to kind of see what emerges by me combining my what if question with the map that emerged. So these are these are just images that Midjourney generated by my what if. So like, what if we stop building condos, supermarkets, and start building habitats for the modern human world without me giving it my own image? It kind of generated these kinds of images. But then what happened, I also tested Rui's questions to see what emerges without his own images. So this is kind of what emerged. So yeah, then I started to insert, so like one of the maps I've done, one of the maps I've done during week 3 was this drawing. And then I said, what if we design for the modern human world first before any human needs? And it kind of generated this image. And then you can upscale, like Midjourney will always create 4 images. And when you look at them, you can choose by looking underneath here, like you can upscale image 1, 2, 3, 4, or if you particularly like an image, you can also start generating variations of that image. So it will create 4 more images based on the one you really like. So I think I'm just gonna go to my Google Slides because it's easier for you, but basically to see, but yeah, I just tested a lot and iterated. Then I went back to my second image and I started iterating with that until the point where I just used both of my drawings to generate images. And if I go to Google slideshow, you can see my screen well now.
Yes, looks great.
Great. Yeah, so this is where I start using my own images from week 3. And Midjourney also has this great function that I can show you. I'll show you when I go back to Midjourney, but instead of clicking the imagine prompt, you can click describe. And it will just describe the image in a language. AI translates its own language here, so you can see how, like, my image said the veins look like branches in the style of mid-century illustration, urban decay, Hilma af Klint, light green and dark gray, Quentin Blake, experimental conceptual spatial concept. I don't know, it just starts. And this also becomes language that you can use to generate images. I also want to point to the fact that I was able to upload my own image because it's a basic plan, it's a monthly subscription. But I found a way you can also do that with the free trial. So I can also point to that later, but yeah, that's why I'm able to do this. So yeah, here I said, so by using both of my maps, I said, what if we remove the cement tarmac asphalt that was paid on ponds and in turn create water retention landscapes and ways to clean water through native plants? And it kind of gave me this image. So it took the vortices that I drew and imagined urban landscape, and it kind of blended these together. I thought this was interesting.
I have to say, I just love this image.
Yeah.
We just spent 3 weeks with the artist Betsy Damon at Metabolic, who was working on flow forms with us and talking about how the figure 8 pattern for how water moves enlivens and regenerates it, and somehow seeing your line drawings in combination with this prompt is just really, really took my breath away. And I think it gave me a lot of kind of hope for this post-human play date that we're having in this class with building a speculative ecology.
Oh, thank you, Lauren. Yeah, this image kind of made me think of like how just like rebuilding the world and how these vortices, you're kind of imposing them on the infrastructure that already exists, and it creates the same effect for me. And and then I said, what if we repurpose all and repair all brown fields, vacant lots, parking lots in Providence, and don't allow developers to turn them into condos? And then it created similar image. I think, I'm not sure what I did here different. Maybe I think I know what I did here. I copied the link of an image and then ask it the same prompt, and then that's why it generated different images, but with the same what if, and it created this as a result. Same kind of patterns. This was the same prompt, but only with my second image, I think. These were very interesting. Let me see the prompt I asked here because I have it. I can share this Google Slides with everyone, but yeah. Oh, here so that's something also I did. In order to get to these images that I showed you earlier, I trained the image a little bit in the sense that I gave it my own map, but then instead of going straight to the what if, I said hyper-realistic top aerial view urban map. And then it created, and I was doing this with my partner who uses Midjourney a lot. So he was showing me how to first train the image to arrive at more interesting results. So this was done prior to the first images you've seen. And I've done it by just, writing this before this prompt. And then I ask the what if using this image as a starting point. Sorry if I can clarify all of this. It's a new process for me too. I started like 3-4 days ago, so that's why it's not straightforward for me either. This was also a very interesting image. This was a combination of both of my maps, different prompt, I guess. What was the prompt? No, I guess this was the same training of the image. Let me see. Oh yeah, here I said hyper-realistic aerial shot of a pond with native plants in the middle of a city, and I gave it my drawings. And these are just whenever the Midjourney would create 4 images, these are the 4 images that would create. So, and then I would choose one, which are the images you've seen at the beginning. And this is just by using the what if prompt without training my image in any way. So you could see that the images are very, very different. Like even this, they tell a very different story. So yeah, just by using the what if didn't work for me to get to the result that I wanted. Maybe this one is a bit better, but oh, and these are Rui's images. This is what I got by.
Send me later.
Yeah. I was like,
Well,
I'm pretty sure this is not what Rui imagined. But yeah, it was funny to see this, especially the cars. Like I didn't really understand the cars in there, but yeah. Yeah, so that was my exploration. Hope I made sense.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Alex. I think that that's really what I wanted to share. And thank you so much for publicly doing your homework for this class. So I thought they were really evocative, and it really enjoyed looking at the range of things that you explored. And I hope that other people did too. Just a quick show of virtual hands. How many people did this homework and would like to share it on the group and feel that sharing it would be useful as learning? And how many people would have not? Like, how many people have something that they've done that they'd like to share? Rui, Mary Rose, Rainey?
I still don't have access to Midjourney. Every time I try, they want me to subscribe. Like they don't do the trials anymore.
Okay.
And I tried,
Same for me.
I watched the learning video and I tried, but it wouldn't let me go further. So I don't know if it was the same error message that Jasmine had, but I definitely got stopped.
So would it be helpful if we take a break and then we come back and collectively look at some other people's work to see how it works? Would that be helpful? Okay, so let's it's 11 my time. Let's take just a sort of 10-minute or 5 or 10-minute break just to kind of step outside and stretch your legs, and then let's come back and go through a little bit of personal screen share with what we've done, because I think it kind of strips the fear out of it to kind of see people kind of walk through like what they've done with it so far. Does that sound good? Okay, so see ya in like, let's not be late. Let's be back in 10 minutes. Thank you.
Lauren, can you tell me the name of the Discord group? I was really hesitant to sign up. My next door neighbor works for Discord and they're not good gardeners, but I just made a login, so I want to join the group.
It's Midjourney is the name of the AI that we're using, and Metabolics Discord is called Water Community Power, and that's where all of the readings that we've done and all of the class notes are held for the future.
Okay.
So,
Put in the chat.
okay.
First one is the water community, and then the second one is the Midjourney on Discord. And they're also posted. I think Mary Rose did a post. On the alternative art school, but these are the, let me know if you need help. I can guide you now towards it if you need help.
Welcome back, everybody. So moving into the what if speculative ecology AI generated exploration. Ree, would you like to go next?
Yeah, just a second. I'll share my screen. Just a second. Oh, just don't show. Shows. Let's go. Created, I don't know if you remember, but I had 2 what ifs. I just need a second. Yeah, so one of my what ifs was, what if artistic practices could foster the preservation of the Sabiaguaba dunes? And I also just finished another course here in the Alternative Art School. I was doing the Agripocene course with Ami Franceschini, and there I started a research process related with a kind of palm that only grows in the region of Brazil where I live. The name of this palm is Carnaúba, and it was a global product since the turn of the 20th century. I don't know if you know this company, SC Johnson from Racine, Wisconsin. They produce wax for cars and for industrial products. And this kind of palm, it produces special wax that is largely used in the industry worldwide, but it only grows in this region of Brazil where I live, the states of Ceará and Piauí, Rio Grande do Norte, 3 states in Northeast Brazil. So I started a research process with this palm, and when Lauren assigned us the Get Lost assignment, I considered the possibility of creating a kind of weather station using this kind of palms in the Sabiaguaba environment. So I experimented a little bit with AI image generators, how this weather station would be. And my action would be to plant a circle of these palms, and in the future build like a weather station, create a kind of sculpture, not with these materials, using materials found in the place, and using like Arduino and environmental sensors to create like a weather station that could monitor like the weather and be like a tool for thinking in the preservation of this environment. And So I created a few iterations of how this weather station would be. And here I'll share with you this link. It's a Miro project, it's a Miro board with the whole project that I'm creating with about the Carnaúba. And here is the part of the project that was triggered by the assignments Lauren gave. So I placed it here, the pictures that I took when I did the Get Lost assignment. And here a few iterations of how this weather station would be.
That's so
And
interesting. So Rui, did they generate that object entirely? The dolly?
Yeah,
the-
yeah. I like tried to. I really like this tube
Yeah.
form.
Yeah,
I feel really influenced by Nancy Holt approach to the environment and tubes, and so I tried to create forms that I would find interesting to this weather station, and like a form that could also be like a bird feeder, because Sabiaguaba means the feeder of the birds. So it would be like a weather station and a bird feeder, like birds could come and like build their nests or like somehow feed in this place. And I was a bit influenced, like the idea of planting a circle was influenced by David Nash sculpture, the Ash Dome. Also like these images of News Udo with palms. And what I did, I should have done that last Thursday, but I did Friday, was planting the palms. I'll share with you the video. I recorded like a performance planting the palms in Sabiaguaba. And I'll share with you the link for you to watch it. So I already planted the palms. And the idea, and it became already a site where I'm going to meditate, like the breathing exercises we do when we start the classes. I did during the performance to plant the trees, and I'll follow the growth of the palms by going there and doing these meditations, like in a long-term project, if the palms grow. But and then someday I'll get I expect to get if the palms grow, I expect to get the license to put the sculpture and like build the idea of the weather station. And it's funny because during the time I recorded the action of planting the trees, in the background you can see cars riding in the dunes. So it also becomes like a register of my interest to create a response to that someday. Maybe like these palms could be the base to watch the movement of cars, and I don't know, install some camera in a palm to track the movement of cars and like create some sort of pressure for the government to take action and stop like allowing cars to ride the dunes. So that's it. And yes.
that's absolutely beautiful. Do you have any questions for us? Like, is this exercise generative of a next step? That's a question I have for you. And like, where you got to with this exercise, does it feel finished, or do you have something like that doing it has generated for you that is the next step?
Yeah. So this action of planting the trees and planning this weather station, it became like part of a bigger project, like that you can see in this mural board, because it's so complex, the history of Carnaúba, to think like how it was, this plant triggered the industrial and agricultural era of my state, Ceará, and it was largely exploited by this Johnson company, which is based in Racine, Wisconsin. So there's, and nowadays there are like, Carnaúba is still extracted, its wax is still used for cosmetics, for like many like, industries use it. And there are, and the German government, for example, is investigating the use of slave-like labor in its extraction. So there are many, the Carnaúba groves here in Ceará, now they have a conflict with shrimp farms. So there's a whole environmental context related with Carnaúba that I wanted to explore using many different strategies. But the post-human infrastructure course triggered like this attention to the Sabiaguaba environment and the presence of Carnaúba there, the possibility of creating this weather station. And like, I also want to like find ways to like use art to deal with this issue of the car. So I think the project can go in many ways. Planting the trees is a way like to state that this is a long-term project. Like they take 10 years to reach the moment when you can start to harvest their leaves. So it's a long-term project, and yeah, that's it.
It's really an excellent start. And my aspiration for this class and teaching it was that you would get by the end of the class the beginning of a project that you wanted to do. And I wanted to build out our water community power Discord with these projects so that if you wanted us or the others on the water community Discord to continue with you in your journey of realization, like an ongoing workshop, that we would have that. So maybe like this week you could, we will start a section under the water community power Discord for projects moving forward that those of us who want to participate in building it with you can continue.
Totally. Also, I will share with you later the whole project that I created, like in the process of these two classes. So it has this name, Waxy Whispers. So you can know a little bit more about the history of Carnaúba and like the ideas I had. Totally influenced by the discussions we had in this class. So I'll share with you also the presentation of the project, and can talk later about the Discord and the water group. I'm not listening.
Thank you so much for that share. And the makeup class for last week that I offered as a result of getting a little derailed will be on Discord the week after we finish this class. I'll be hosting a class on the Discord for anybody that wants to come. So do sign up if you can, so that I can do a practice with you all next week. Thank you. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? Well, for the sake of time, was anybody else wanted to share? Mary Rose, did you want to?
Thank you. I have some images and after being in France and paying attention to the way the water moved and returning back to here to Topanga, I have been drawn to this one location specifically, which is the Topanga Lagoon, which is where the creek, which is a waterway that moves through a town in a canyon, empties out into the sea. And years prior, in 2020, I noticed that it was very full. And then in 2021, it never even made it to the ocean because of drought. And that inspired me to start visiting it more and paying attention to what was happening there. And there was one day in particular where I came upon a dead fish, a trout, and which ended up being a trout when I looked it up, which is really rare to find in the Topanga Lagoon or the creek. But I realized, or I researched that there were more, but because of things like sediment and impacted soil and runoff from the towns, it was reducing the population. And the thing about this trout is that there were shards of pottery in the nearby area, and one of which was actually a statue of the Virgin Mother in Catholic faith, the Mother Mary. And it just seemed to be like a little altar was created organically for this fish. And I started to think about ways to pay homage to things that had passed. And so some of these images I'm gonna share are using prompts for envisioning how to create ritual spaces around bodies of water and places water connects to bigger bodies of water in a beautiful way that brings attention to it and brings us a sense of reverence and awe. So let me see if I can share some of these images. Just a few, because for me as well, Midjourney stopped working. So I used Photor and Crayon. And here's just a few of them. How is the size of it for everyone? I'm not sure what everyone's seeing.
It's pretty clear, Mary Rose. It's big enough to see.
Thank you so much. So here's an image where I thought about walkways and bridges and the what if of if there could be a bridge that we either drove or walk across that also was made of material that would filter the water that was passing under it. So this is a shell bridge made of shell material and also the roots of different plants that came out shaped like a spiral, which I thought was really beautiful. And by act of passing over it or through it or around it, it could gather energy and illuminate at night, or almost bioluminesce at night. Here's another image of another walkway of walking across a creek that has shell-like behaviors, kind of like a shell, but also allows water to run over it, so it doesn't really dam up the water, and has the potential to clean it or filter. And then this one was more of a concept of how we could live nearby the water, but also allow the water to move naturally over or under us. Almost like a water world image. And similar to like a detail, I added in the idea of birds and trout thriving in this image too, and that's what came up.
Great work.
Thank you. Still very, very young in its inception, but I'm very
Yeah, I
inspired
mean,
by the
was it,
class.
was it helpful for you to explore this post-human interface that's available as a tool? How did it feel to you?
It felt really, really exciting to see, especially like the images of the shell and the shapes. Not really being able to like draw something like that out of my mind's eye, and then seeing it in front of me is already sparking new ideas of how to use geometry.
Interesting. You know, I was thinking a little bit about some of the images I've seen you post of your ceramic practice.
Mhm.
And like when I was looking especially at that last image that was like what you said is like a water world,
Mhm.
I was thinking about how interesting it would be to kind of copy it in clay as a diorama, you know?
Totally.
It felt like a clay object to me somehow. And
That was
it's-
a lot of my prompts too. I was utilizing this idea of sculptures in clay
Oh,
as a way
really?
to
So you had those
filter.
in a prompt? Okay.
I did. You reminded me, yes, in some
Thank
of
you
them.
for sharing that. Like that's why I wanted to workshop this with everybody, because there is no one way to use an AI. It's just a tool that's available to us that I wanted to introduce on as a class dynamic, not because the final product of your speculative ecology needs to be an AI, but it is an interesting way to workshop certain ideas and move from the language that we started with, you know, with the writing that we shared, into an image generation that is somewhere between language and image, because of course it's language that generates the image here. So it's pretty much the opposite of a kind of abstract minimalist painting, which you can do. You can put an abstract minimalist painting into an AI and ask for a description and generate an abstract image that way. So I was trying to try and iterate something that Jasmine had read with her what ifs. I wanted to like stick that into an AI and say, what does that look like? You know, but that's like, I better do that with Jasmine, because feels like a hive-minded thing to do. But like the reason I'm having you guys talk is to ask questions like, what is the language you used with that AI? It's part of our world now. So it's not that this class is going into some weird sci-fi techie mode, but it seemed that in a post-human infrastructure class, we should talk about post-human interfaces for art practice and get a little bit of a conversation going about that. So in that regard, does anybody else have something they want to share this week, or any crosstalk on any of the things they've seen? They've seen Alex and Ree and Mary Rose so far. So we're starting to gain questions that might come up for anybody. Feel free as we go. And otherwise, Jack, do you have anything?
I actually don't. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have a project they wanted to share? Well, I hadn't counted on that. So I think the best way to workshop then is to break into breakout rooms where we can explore and talk in smaller groups about generating an AI in a breakout room. Either that, or we can work with you and exploit Jack's skills with Midjourney. He can screen share and we can send him some verbal what ifs to try collectively. That might be more fun.
Yeah, I'm happy to be a conduit medium.
Yeah, you have to, because otherwise I'm gonna come yell at you later.
Okay.
Jack works at Metabolic, everybody, and he is largely working with me on my speculative what if. So I know his skills. So he's very fluent with this. So I think if he screen shares and some of you might feed him a what if, you can get an immediate start. If that might be more fun. Would you be willing, Jasmine, or now that I've outed that I'm interested in hearing what your what ifs will do? Is that too much pressure?
No, it's not too much pressure.
Okay. Jack, can you help us translate to Midjourney, what if Jasmine might give us?
Of course, of course. Here we go.
And also, we can also start from an image. We can put an image on a chat bar that Jack can probably feed it and ask for what that description of that is. Correct, Jack?
Yes.
So that's another way for those of you who want to learn how an AI might see one of your images. We can also try that route.
Yeah, so the way, oops. Why is it doing that?
See, this is helpful. You can explain to people what's not working. That way, when people get nervous, they know it's not them.
Let's try to reopen Discord. Let's see.
Explain to us what you're doing so we can all be there with you.
So I'm trying to log into Discord. For some reason, Discord's giving me this notification that it's thinking about something. I don't know what it's thinking. Oh, there it goes. So now it's open.
Interesting. See, everybody, we're having a relationship with an other than human being. Like, it's just like in real life. It's like you want something and your friend or your coworker says, well, yeah, I'm working on something else. You're gonna have to wait a minute. And then with this kind of thing, it's the same way. It's like, you're supposed to be automatic. Give me what I want right now. Now what's happening?
I'm closing it and I'm trying to reopen it again. Discord the app.
So does everybody know what Discord is? And does anybody have an opinion about it
So weird.
as a platform?
Um,
Why do you use it or why don't you use it? I'm curious. While we're waiting for Jack to open it, you might say,
Yeah.
we don't use it because this is the kind of stuff that happens.
Jack, if it doesn't work or I can also open mine and write the prompts.
Why don't you go ahead and we'll see what happens. You can both work it. We can get this like an echo thing going. Let's workshop this. Whoever
Okay.
can open Discord, open Discord. I'm going to open Discord right now too.
I finally made an account. Aside from, I have a tumultuous relationship with my neighbor who doesn't know anything about gardening, and we fight over a garden barrier. And he's a Discord executive. So my prompt was like, what if Discord executives were required to work in gardens? But aside from like my personal interactions, my tech background is in privacy rights. So I really struggle with decentralized networks, but I realize that this is the future. And hopefully we'll buy my neighbors a bigger house and they'll move and I'll get better neighbors. So that's my experience with it. But I'm on both of the tools now on my phone. I'm not just distracted texting. It is complicated to navigate.
So Alex, are you on yet?
Yes.
Okay, Jasmine, do you want to feed Alex a prompt from your, or what, just feed her a what if?
Yes. What if there's a mountain of black sage in Compton?
Do you
That's
mind?
such a good one.
Okay, I'm just gonna share my screen. I just described Yeva's image, but I can send this in a minute. So Jasmine, do you mind telling your
Wait,
question?
first, look, can you tell everybody that what you just did so anybody could, the image prompt, right?
How do you
Yeah,
add the image?
Sorry, what?
How do you add the image?
Oh,
So-
I'm able to add the image because I have this monthly plan, but I click on the plus and I say upload a file.
Mm.
And that's how I get to upload a file. But I tested it this morning on my computer, and the way you can add an image is by clicking blend. And that gives you the option. This also works when you don't have a subscription. And then you can add an image, upload it. And then basically how you get the link of an image is by clicking copy link. But 1 second. Oh gosh, what is it doing? Okay. But I want to go back to Jasmine's what if prompt. Okay. So yeah, what I did now is these are all various different prompts, and but yeah, I say imagine, and then that's when I can click.
So that's true for that. This is where everybody would put in their what if, right? Where it says
Yeah.
prompt. Yeah.
Yeah,
Now
So-
we'll do Jasmine's.
yeah. So what if?
There is a mountain of black sage. Is that how you?
Yes, or maybe I should say that, what if there is a mountain of black sage in Compton?
Yeah.
And so it's Captain California, USA, should I be that specific?
And
Well, let's see what it does with just Compton, should we? Or do you want to tell them specifically?
I'm curious, I don't know if there's other Comptons in the world.
Yeah, let's see. There probably is, but it would be interesting also to have, if you send us an image of Compton, we could feed that to the AI, so it puts it right there.
did I spell Compton right?
Yes, you did.
But
Great.
maybe we should say Compton, California, or Compton, Los Angeles. What do you think, Jasmine?
Hmm,
Is
I'm
it, are you curious about what it'll come up with, which is
yes,
Compton? Yeah, let's
yes.
do that, because it could be interesting as long as we're moving into a meta world here.
Mhm.
So I'll just imagine.
Okay. Everybody just imagine, here we go.
I'm curious what would happen if we put the scientific name too, instead
Oh,
of just black sage.
interesting, interesting.
Yeah, can you paste it in the chat?
Let me find it.
So now everybody, we wait for a minute. And
I tried it. I got just some beautiful images of black sage, but it doesn't look like it's contextualized in Compton.
Jack, you can screen share at the same time, which would be interesting for us to see. If you want. Wait, let's see. This is interesting. Look what's coming out here. It looks like an abstract painting.
I tried one on crayon with art. I would love to share those images. I don't know how to do it exactly though. Can I text it to someone?
You can upload it into chat or share your screen in just a little bit. But I guess if you can upload it into the Zoom chat.
Okay.
Look at that. That's incredible. So now we can, if we go to the bottom, you can look at any particular image full screen by going V1, V2, V3, or V4. Do you want to see any of them in particular, Jasmine? Or do you want to change your prompt?
Let me think.
Or work with the
You know-
particular image you have.
I like the, let's see, right now I'm also looking at photos of Compton. I'm trying to see what they're gaining inspiration from. I'm like, because I guess there's not many mountains in general. Like, this is fascinating too, because it's just a mountain of the herbs. Well, I was thinking of the mountain growing with the herbs. So maybe that's
Yes.
what the prompt. Like, what if there was a mountain growing abundantly with black sage in Compton, California, USA?
What if there was a mountain growing abundantly
Mhm.
in Compton, California?
Mhm.
All right, should we try it? It might be interesting, Jack, if you could look up or if Jasmine could put in the chat bar the scientific name for black sage, because they're also not consistent with what black sage is in the images.
Oh. Yeah, sorry, I'm just seeing that Jasmine put
No, it'd be interesting to compare contrast, you know?
yeah.
Whoa, look at that pyramid, that blurry pyramid.
It's Salvia mellifera.
Oh, salvia.
And it melliflora means sweet flower.
Black sage.
Weird. That's not the Compton I know.
I know, because even when I'm Googling and looking at the images, I'm like, I guess they just don't have as much to go off of. Like, I feel like maybe I should just say a different neighborhood or something.
Well, unless you want, do you have a picture of Compton, or I can put a picture of Compton and
I was
then
looking for one too. Let me see, because I wanted to have more nature in it, because I wanted some of that nature to come out, but I don't see many. Like, I guess there's just not much of an archive of that.
how interesting.
You can use prompts like city, buildings, like if you just list a bunch of words, it also incorporates that into.
That's a good tip.
The
This
image.
is where cutting and pasting an image that you like, even if it has the vibe you like, then you can ask description.
Mhm.
Oh, there's one. Jasmine just posted an
Oh.
image of urban. Is that Compton?
Mhm. Let's see, here's another one.
Oh, sorry.
Whoa. Oh my gosh.
What, Jack? What?
Oh no, it just actually I took a photograph of the street view of Compton with the mountain of Salvia mellifera. And it's actually coming out with
Can you share your screen?
yeah.
I'm dying to see.
Yeah. Here like this. Can you see that?
No.
Oh, I think it's because
I think only, I thought you could have multiple screen shares, but I'm not sure you can.
oh, what did I do here?
You
Oops.
can, but if you go to view options, you can choose whose screen you want to look at.
Oh,
the
okay,
top.
thank you.
Shall I stop sharing my screen?
No, this is all interesting.
So I just.
Wow.
Yeah, interesting. I'll put this in the chat.
Thanks, Jack.
Yeah, Jack, I'm looking at yours. That is really interesting. I liked how they put it just like on the road, you know.
Wait, how are you looking at Jack's? I still can't figure out how to do
So
that.
I went to view options and then underneath,
Wait, where is view options at the top?
it's next to you were viewing someone's screen. Like you might be viewing.
Oh,
Exactly.
got it.
And then
Got
I
it.
went down to shared screens and I found Jack.
Thank you. Oh, wow. What do you think about that one, Jasmine?
I think it's really fascinating because it like definitely is not, it's like, it feels like the Compton that my mom would describe when she grew up there, rather than the one I know. So it feels like it's one of those ones that kind of blends time, you know? Like this, especially this road, like it reminds me of things, but like I've never seen it with plants growing. My mom grew up there when she would see plants and hear animals and like, you know, it feels like one of those kind of mental situations where you're seeing into the past of something that you want to see into the future.
What's so interesting and what you don't get on an image is that I know how that pathway would smell. And this image just is so motivating to me, like I want to be there. So this is the first AI image that I've actually seen that like I want to go to that place. And I think that that's really interesting as part of an artist notebook, is to be able to pull from a prompt a visual image that actually you want to like go, oh, that may not have been what I had in my mind's eye, but that's something else. And it came from my generative mind.
Yeah, this project is also showing me more lessons of even the Black Sage. Like, that's one of my favorite things about it, is that I can just like, once you use it, like it just goes to the root so well, where it's like, oh wow, like once you're going to the root, you're just discovering worlds that have already existed or something. Like, to see this and see my mother just like really blew my mind a little bit.
Thank you, Jack. Jack, see, this has been super helpful. Now I'm going to go back and see what is going on with the other screen.
I have to share my screen again, sorry.
Oh, did you take it off? Okay.
But yeah, for me,
You still have that image you were working on the other Compton?
yeah, because I used the image that was in the chat of content, and
Yeah,
then I still used my what if question, the Jasmine's what if. So
Yeah.
I got this.
and it's still processing, right?
Oh no, this is the final one. But
Oh,
I
so
guess,
where's the Black Sage?
I guess, yeah, it's interesting in how you feed it language, because Jack just put the scientific name
Yeah,
and changed the question from a sentence. And I kept the what if, and I kept sage, Black Sage, and the scientific name. So yeah, that's what came out for me when I asked that.
great. This has been a super, super helpful, I think, demonstration, Jazz, of taking a cohort like this, right? Where we're all workshopping each other's speculative ecologies. Like this isn't like the same as like doing your project, but it's interesting to see that you could use Jasmine's imagination to generate really different imagery in different hands on different programs, right? Same moment in time. So this is part of what I wanted to explore with on a class level. Does anybody else want to work with this while we have 10 more minutes? Can we, Jamie Grace, did you have something you wanted to add it in as a prompt that you want to see workshopped, or did you want to share on a group level?
Oh, sure, I'd love to.
Okay, which way would you like to go? Would you like to deliver a prompt or share something you've made?
My text that I sent Alex, I have that right pulled up. I could share the first line of that text, which
As a
was,
what if?
yeah, on the what if.
Okay, Alex, are you able to do that?
Oh yes.
Okay, so should we can start from the, thank you, Jasmine. Are you cool if we move on to the next one?
Yeah, of course, of course.
So just again, to workshop this, everybody, we're gonna go into the Midjourney again.
So Jamie, these are, I just copy pasted your what ifs into our collective what if Google Docs. What is the what if you want to workshop?
I'd like to take the first one. What if whales swim in space?
Okay, cool.
Nice. Whales on mind.
You mean like a astrological like outer space, or like just
Good question, Jack.
That's how I first envisioned it, Jack. But as I started to say it over and over, as I've been working with this prompt, the word space has definitely changed in my mind. So you're thinking along the same lines. It's been opening up. I don't have the
So-
answer. I just have more.
So Jamie Grace, would it be okay if we asked Jack to do the same prompt, but with outer space as a
Yeah.
prompt?
Definitely.
Can you do that, Jack?
yes.
Thank you.
It might be cool to do them both, inner space and
Yeah,
outer space.
but separate prompts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what if whales swim in inner or
No,
outer?
no. In this one, just say in space, right?
Okay, got it.
Right?
okay.
Just so we can see what her poetic mind versus the post-human prompt gets closer to an image she likes.
So I'll just ask. Oh, sorry. I think I've asked, I gave it the wrong parameter. I try to.
What's a parameter again?
It's something I'm still trying to understand, but
Oh, okay,
I just copy whatever Augie was doing and just
okay.
putting this at the end to get.
All right,
better
this is
at it.
part of your lesson, everybody, is find a friend who knows what they're doing and do it with them.
Yeah. I was just, yeah, I kept saying that. I mean, maybe Jack knows how to explain what this is because I saw he's using it too. But what these V5 other parameters at the end are.
That's what a perimeter is, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, V5 just means it's the 5th version of Midjourney. So the different like generations of Midjourney, there's been different styles. Like version 2 was much more painterly.
yeah,
and
yeah.
V5 is much more like hyper real.
Okay. So
So
yeah,
here we
that's-
are with the first 4 images Midjourney's got of what if whales swim in space. Jamie Grace, do you want to see any one of these full screen? Or do you want to hold and look at what the outer space version does?
Yeah, I think the latter.
Okay, Jack, did you get anything? Are you screen sharing?
I am. I added a little bit of details. To
Okay.
make it more like outer space, I said with planets and stars. So
Okay,
swimming through outer
cool.
space with planets and stars.
Are you seeing his, Jamie Grace?
Mhm. Oh, so interesting.
I'm like, wow.
I really am attracted personally to the outer space one.
Mhm.
And I would love to see V4 if possible. Is that V4? Oh, that's V4. Is that one upside down? Is that whale, is the V4 one swimming with its belly to the sky?
No, his tail is just like has like
Oh.
a triple tail.
That is a crazy spatial like inversion for me. Like I'm having spatial dysmorphia. It's like,
Whoa. It does look like a belly to the sky.
it does to me too.
Oh, now I see it. Now I can't unsee it.
That's just nuts. I was watching the Great British Pottery Throwdown last night, and they were doing this technique called sgraffito, where
Mm.
you paint on a glaze and then you scratch at it. And I was thinking that this whale with the belly to the sky looks like a ceramic sgraffito. And the assignment that they had, the potters, is it had to be a night lamp. So they also had to add a light to their final ceramics. And I was thinking, God, this would be the coolest night light ever.
Graffito.
So Jamie Grace, do you like it?
It's pretty interesting.
Okay. So let's unscreen share for a minute just to end the class. Jack and Alexander, thank you so much for your help. And I mean, I think this is a pretty interesting way to workshop something with other people. It's easier than like feeling like you have to sign up and do everything. Would you guys like to continue this a little bit, the first part of the next session?
I would.
So I think that, you know, so all of you get a little bit of that thrill of workshopping it. And Alex and Jack, will you continue to kind of both help us if we like, maybe what we could do is for those of you who would like to, if you could send Alex, if you could send Alex your what ifs you would like us to workshop, maybe this week, Jack and Alex and Mary Rose and I can put these all together as a slideshow with your what ifs, and we'll start the next class by going through them all. Does that sound good? And then we can talk about them technically and workshop them from here, because embedded in any beginning is an endless array of variations you can get into. So next week we can get it a little bit deeper. But does everybody understand why I'm doing this? It's not because I'm trying to like turn you all into AI artists. It's because there's something there about building a speculative ecology as a workshop mechanism. It kind of, I think, can be helpful. It may not be helpful for everyone, but I feel like I'm able to understand better where Jamie Grace is going with her speculative ecology, having seen those images. And I feel like that with everybody's, and maybe you do too. Maybe you're getting ideas now just from seeing other people's things.
I don't know if the ones in the chat translated, if you could see those, especially Jasmine. It's fascinating to see across the speculation differences across platforms, because I was using Crayon and just to see how different it would be, and it's radically different.
Do you want to share your Crayon one, Jamie Grace? Do you know how to, or is it in the chat?
It's in the chat. There's two of them, actually. One is a drawing and one is photo. But they're so radically different from what the other chat was generating.
I think because like when you went into Crayon, I think that they saw sage as a body, you know, like a bodily, like someone who is a sage. So I think they were thinking of like a black sage rather than the black sage.
That's wild. It's really wild.
It would actually be really interesting to describe the image in Midjourney to see the language, like what language is associating with that image.
Yeah. So we'll send everybody this chat bar so you have access. Oh, you can download it. I never remember, but we'll keep it anyway. There's a super interesting chat bar variation. So I think this was a really great class, really great work. And thank you so much for all your support. I'm just learning this too, right? This is all brand new stuff to me, but I find that, you know, for example, in trying to bring consciousness to what I'm doing with my practice by bending the LA River and reintroducing it as a new river in the city, I am struggling to build imagery for various people in government to allow a river to flow through the city, but a river that looks like something post-human, not like a river from Switzerland that, you know, it's going to have little ducks floating on it, you know, like what is that thing? And so I've been exploring this as a way to articulate an image that is both believable and generative of a new way of thinking. So that's why it's so interesting to have this tool, because it's a very nuanced thing, communicating. That's why I brought up like Lucy Lippard's statement. What do you want to say? Who do you want to say it to? And how do you want to say it? Because all of these different AIs can be told in the style of so-and-so, right? So if you're not happy with the image, you can also tell it and learn, like you can feed it an image you like and ask the AI to describe that image and then cut and paste that description into your description. So there's ways to workshop getting the image you want. Like I really like people like how Frank Lloyd Wright did watercolors of his houses. So if I were able to generate the river that I wanted, and I wanted it to look like Frank Lloyd Wright's rendering of falling water, I could take his rendering of falling water and feed it to the AI and say, give me a description of this. And then I can cut that description and put it into my image. And the AI will likely nudge my image closer to that prompt, which is very helpful as a visual storyteller, right? Because then I'm thinking, who am I trying to say this to? Well, I'm trying to sell this to the, you know, head person of the California State Parks Commission. And I know they like those beautiful postcards of California, you know, that look like watercolor paintings. So I'm being strategic, right? It's an image that I'm making for a consumer of the image. So that's why I brought up Lucy Lippard's statement. Who are you trying to say it to? the AI gives you an opportunity to workshop that, which I think is really, really interesting. There's lots of subtle things. So I'm just learning this and happy to share like in a cohort with you all, which is why after this class is over, I'm going to continue working with speculative ecology on water community power, because it directly relates to a line of work I see moving forward with in the world, which is how do artists and creatives support each other and manifesting out of the box visions for liminal worlds we want to move toward. And you need a place to workshop it. Jamie, Grace?
I would just love to share something in conclusion with what has come from the what if speculations and how contagious and enjoyable that experience was for me. When we were at the show last week on last Sunday, we had everyone take out binoculars from their pockets as a group exercise in what if, and everyone was like, what, I don't have binoculars. But then we were like, no, you have them. Everybody has them. Get your binoculars on and start imagining what if a better world is possible. And then we were able to work with our crowd of attendees to generate their own what ifs, and people got so into it. People seriously loved it. It was like an absolute highlight, and it gave people the freedom to just go crazy. Like this one gentleman said, what if I could talk to my fish and he could answer back? And the level of generation of imagination in an installation setting was so powerful. It was like the win of the week for me. It was a really special experience. So I just wanted to share that with everybody.
Thank you, Jamie Grace. And that was going to kind of move into the next kind of homework that I had, but it'll actually be for the next week when we meet on Discord, which is that who do you want to say it to can really change as you practice that interface between the speculative ecology as an image and a speculative ecology being grounded if you just choose to ground it at all, right? Like, I don't know if that makes any sense, but in order to, try and give you a tangible example of that. So I started Not a Cornfield, the work that I did on the metabolic cycle in 2005. And when I bend the river, I'll finally complete this speculative question I had of what if it were possible to reconnect that floodplain that used to exist here with a water source that would feed it. That was what's generated nearly 20 years of work. But I decided to try and ground it, like make it actually happen from that speculation. And I've had to deal with the US Army Corps of Engineers to make that happen. So that takes a little bit of time because it's a first, and first take time. But the idea of holding space for that story has changed over time, because now Not a Cornfield is the LA State Historic Park. And there's many people who use it just because it's a really cool place to be. So how do I tell them what I'm about to do? Some of them weren't even born when I did it, right? So I'm in this complicated idea of like, how do you tell the story? So every single week we sit in the LA State Historic Park Farmers Market and we make things with people. We make seed bombs and we tell stories, and we make objects and we tell stories. And in a really low stakes way, we hold space for the story to get told. And that's what I mean by like grounding the experience of these speculations in reality, right? Once you start to do that, it's going to change what you think you need to make, because you're actually learning by doing. And so the idea of the Water Community Power Discord is for those of you who want to get to a place in this class that you have a groundable project. I'm saying that I'm supporting that effort through when this class ends, you can continue with a cohort that are not part of the alternative art school, right? Who are interested in building speculative models, sharing them, discussing them, not with me, but with each other, right? It's no longer a centralized format like this. You're taking my class. It becomes like we are working on a social media platform on this. And whoever comes on can engage. So, sorry, I thought we would end on time today, but that 10-minute break, if you just took away the 10-minute break, we're ending on time. It's only 10 after. Well, great class, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did.
Thank you, everyone.
And again, send your any prompts that you'd like us to generate to Alex. Can we make you the receiver of them?
Yes, I was also wondering if it's easier to, yeah, I can be the receiver, never mind.
Or either that or Mary Rose, either the two of you, but you know,
Both
what
and.
both
Yeah,
and
no, that works. No, I was just thinking in a split second, I was like, oh, is a Google Docs easier to collect, but my email is also perfect. Like whatever.
or the school, you know, the school has I was thinking on the school chat, you know, that might be the easiest thing.
Yeah, that's what I was like trying to.
Yeah, I think that's the easiest thing.
I will keep an eye out for everyone's.
And
help
we'll start
gather.
our class with a kind of presentation of where we got, you know.
That's perfect.
I'm happy to receive prompts also, if anyone wants to email me.
Yeah, now you've seen everybody's style. You can also say in the style of crayon, or I want that ceramic thing, that weird, like I was thinking of, there's something about Bree's image going into crayon. I wanted to see it become less real. It's weird. There were certain images that I was like, it's too real, or I wanted it to go less real. Does that make any sense?
I had that same reaction.
Did you? Oh,
Yeah, I
that's
did.
interesting.
Yeah, I feel like there's this hyper realistic kind of fantasy aesthetic that's the default that I kind of cringe at, but I keep getting when I plug things in.
Well, try that trick where you go to an image that you like and plug it in and ask for a description of it. And then when you get the description, cut that description into your own prompt.
You could also type /settings, and then it'll bring up a menu of like settings, and you could make it like version 4, version 3. Version 5 is that like uncanny, hyper realistic thing.
From my experience with the journey, and that's what we did at first for the flyer art of learning and mending, the only way we could get at an image we really wanted is by, like Lauren said, about the image of Frank Lloyd Wright with the watercolor, give it a style you really want. Like in our case, at first we used John Cage's drawings as a prompt, and then it would just create in that style. So I find that if it has a visual reference, specific visual reference, you'll arrive faster at the image that you're looking for.
You could also just say it's by that person. I always say a drawing like by Paul Rudolph instead of not in the style. I just say give them authorship, I guess. Right?
Thanks.
I think I have office hours with you in a half hour, right, Rainey?
At 12:30 or at 1? 12:30?
I think it was at 1, and I think Jasmine is first, right, Jasmine?
I was confused too. I thought it was the other way, but I can do either way.
I can go either way also.
Well,
I don't
I'm
mind being first, or yeah.
okay.
either way.
Why don't we go 12:30 Jasmine and then 1 Rainey? Is that cool?
That sounds great.
And I'll see you in a minute, right, Mary Rose? Bye, everybody.
Bye.